Hey everyone, I'm Rossie. And you know, the Africans have a proverb. They say that if there's no enemy within, that the enemy outside can do you no harm. And when I look back at my own life, I can see I had that enemy within me. It was like I had an enemy within me, leading me to make some very poor choices for my life. And all these choices hurt me. And they also hurt any chances that I had for success in life. So by the time I was 25, I had become something I never wanted to be. I was a violent person. I was a criminal, a drug addict, and an alcoholic. I caused so many problems in my own life that I was wanted by law enforcement across Texas. So I left and I became a homeless drifter and a fugitive. I even started riding freight trains with hobos. And I rode a freight train from Arizona to California to get some food stamps. And I landed on LA Skid Row. And if you don't know, Skid Row is a place where homeless people and drug addicts live. Some of them live on the sidewalk in cardboard boxes. Skid Row, man, is a very sad and very depressing place. But there's another Skid Row that we can look at. Because Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, Super Bowl champion Junior Seau, the guy that killed himself, right? The Super Bowl champion that killed himself. These are just a few of the many, many, many people who had all those things that we're told will make us happy, right? The money, the fame. These people, they lived in beautiful mansions up in the hill. Yet, they were residents of the Skid Row of the mind. And that Skid Row is even more sad and even more depressing than the streets of LA. You know, our minds are so powerful that our minds have the power to kill us. And our minds also have the power to set us free from that bondage, depending on the use or the misuse of our mind. You know, our mind can be like a rudder on a ship. And that rudder can send that ship crashing into the rocks to its destruction. And that same rudder on that ship can steer that ship off into a distant land never seen before. You know, my mind has taken me to hell and back. But you know something? My mind has also helped me. It's helped me to create and find heaven right here on earth. So I've written a book about it. And my book is entitled Escaping My Shadow. And the shadow that I'm referring to is the same shadow that world-renowned psychologists Dr. Sigmund Freud and Dr. Carl Jung described as a negative reservoir of the human mind. Reservoir, that means it's like a drainage ditch that holds all of our negativity and all of our darkness. Dr. Jung stated, everyone carries a shadow, and the less conscious we are of it, the darker and denser it is. Whoa, what does that mean right there? The less conscious we are of the negative part of our mind, the darker and denser it is. The reality is less conscious. That means the less aware. The reality is most people never stop, pause for a moment, and take a look at their thinking. They never become aware. Speaking of awareness, are you aware that our minds talk to us? Yeah, our minds talk to us. As a matter of fact, our mind can be like an ongoing commentator. And it's got a big opinion about everything. It judges everything out here, judges everyone and everything. And guess who else it judges? That's right, it judges us. As a matter of fact, it would be natural for you to have already formed some sort of opinion about me. You know, maybe it's my dress attire. Maybe you have a positive or a negative opinion about it. Maybe it's my haircut. Maybe it's my ethnicity. Maybe it's something I've already talked about that your mind has said is good, bad, right or wrong, it agrees or it disagrees. It really isn't as important what your mind has told you. You just want to begin to recognize that it's doing that all the time. So I'm going to be quiet for just a moment, and let's see if you can hear that little voice in your head. Did you hear it? It's a little voice that said, I don't have a little voice. There's no little voice in here. This is a stupid exercise. This guy's an idiot. That's a little voice. And it's that little voice that's always commentating that sometimes will keep us in limitation. It'll keep us fearful. And it'll keep us really small in our lives. You know? So I'm going to ask that you do something. I'm going to ask you to do something you've never been asked to do before. I request that you listen from beyond that little voice. Because if you can listen from beyond that little voice, some surprising things can become possible. So let's go back to that 3-part statement from Dr. Carl Jung. The first part was, everyone carries a shadow. That means everyone. No one's excluded. We all have it to some degree or other, right? Some of us have it a lot more. It's much more stronger than others. But everyone carries a shadow. The less conscious we are of it, the less conscious of it that we are, the less aware we are of it, the darker and denser it is. Whoa. Now what does dark and what does dense look like? You know, I have a couple of family members I'm going to tell you some stories about. And this is a really good example of being less conscious of this part of our mind and how dark and dense it can get. So I have an uncle. And my uncle was sitting one day in his truck, minding his own business, when his ex-girlfriend passes by in her car with her new boyfriend. And they were laughing. And my uncle's mind told him, they're laughing at me. See, that's the negative thought. And oh, by the way, when our shadow talks to us, it doesn't talk to us, it really talks through us. It says things like I and me. So my uncle's mind told him, they're laughing at me. He had a negative thought. A negative thought brings with it that negative emotion. Upset. Negative thought, negative emotion, what do you think is next? Negative reaction. So when we're not conscious of this happening, all we do is we react to our lives and things in it and the dramas that unfold. So negative thought, they're laughing at me. Negative emotion, upset. The negative reaction was my uncle went and got his gun and he shot both of them. And that the woman died. You see, when our mind, our negative part of our mind, this shadow, we don't pay attention to it, we don't investigate it, it becomes darker and denser. And it's strong. So I have another family member I'll tell you about. It's my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law was going through a divorce. And my brother-in-law went to the deepest, darkest corners of his own mind for a solution to that problem. He went to his shadow. His own mind, his shadow convinced him there was no solution. And oh, by the way, if you experience some doom or gloom about the future, shadow's working in your life. So it's just a thought and it becomes a reality. It paints our reality for us and it's a dim future. So My brother-in-law went to that deepest, darkest corner of his mind. His mind told him there is no solution. His own mind, his shadow convinced him the only solution would be to pick up that shotgun and put that shotgun barrel into his mouth and push the trigger. And he did it. He did it because when our shadow grows darker and denser, it speaks with authority. And when our mind speaks with authority, we do what it says. Why do you think these young people are picking up guns and going into schools and going on these murderous rampages? It's because they are unaware that they have a negative self-talking mind, shadow. They're unaware that they have this shadow speaking with great authority. And when it speaks with authority, we do what it says, even when it means hurting ourselves or other people. So, you know, when these Africans are talking about this enemy within, and these psychologists are talking about this shadow, you know they're all talking about the same thing. Our shadow is that enemy within. And if we have a deadly enemy, because our shadow, when it grows dark and dense, it grows to the level of being deadly. So if we have this enemy within us, and we want to overcome or even defeat that enemy, you're going to want to know some things about that enemy. First of all, to defeat any enemy, you need to find out some things. You need to know how it functions, where it lives. Most importantly, you're going to want to have a game plan to defeat it. But you can't defeat an enemy until you can see it. So at the end of this talk, I'm going to direct you to my website where you can actually, you're going to be directed there, and you're going to come up with 2 exercises. I'm going to share those with you. In my talks, it's a handout. So in this handout, you're going to receive 2 powerful, powerful techniques on how to bring your shadow from back here where it's been hiding, right? It's in your blind spot. And we're going to bring shadow out front. And not only are we going to bring it out front, but we're going to put a spotlight on it so you can see it. And when you see your shadow for the first time, you may be shocked to find what it's been doing to you. How it's been keeping you in fear. How it's been limiting you in your life. And also, like I said, keeping you small. You may find that you yourself have been sleepwalking in consciousness for a long time. And when you are able to see that you've been asleep in consciousness, that's a beautiful awareness. Because once you see that you've been sleepwalking, you automatically begin to wake up. And when you wake up fully, you begin to become the observer of your thoughts. You take a look at your thoughts and you can take a step back and say, damn, look at what my mind has been telling me. You know, you may see if you do these exercises, 2 simple exercises, I might even add a third one, a very effective third exercise. But right now there are 2 on there. You do those 2 exercises, you're going to see some things that you've been carrying around in your consciousness. And you're going to find some negative thoughts that you've been holding and carrying on. Maybe this thought is very, very old. Maybe you've been carrying around this thought for decades. Maybe someone told you something when you were a little kid. Maybe they told you you were a bad kid and you held on to that. Maybe they told you you were ugly, you're stupid, you're fat, you'll never be anything. You're going to go to jail. You're going to be a jailbird the rest of your life. You're not good enough. Right? Maybe even you told yourself these things. It doesn't matter who said it. Because these things, these thoughts, only have power when you give them power. These thoughts are only true when you believe them to be true. And today, you're going to have a choice. So in my workshop, or in my talk, when I have an audience, we do a little exercise. And we're going to do a positive, powerful exercise. But today, there's no audience here. We're going to skip that part, okay? But let me tell you what are we going to do when we notice and we see one of these negative thoughts that we're carrying around? The first thing we're going to do, let's just take an example, like what was a thought that I had? Well, what caused me a lot of problems? Take a look at this. Okay, if I'm carrying around a thought that I'm a bad person, right? Because that's what I started to believe in. Got in a little trouble at school, selling marijuana. Okay, I started to make a story up, gathering evidence that I'm a bad person. Then I started doing more bad things because I'm a bad person. Started stealing money from companies that was supposed to go to high schools. Now I started developing, when I look myself in the mirror, even a worse character. I'm a piece of crap. So what does a piece of crap turn into? You hold in that consciousness, you hold in that thought in your consciousness, your world manifests. How do you think I ended up being a homeless person and a fugitive riding freight trains and, begging people for change? You know how? Because I held a negative thought into my mind and I believed it. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to identify these thoughts. You're going to see these thoughts. Wow, look what I've been thinking about myself. I've been thinking I'm a piece of crap. I've been thinking I'm not good enough to go to college. I'm not good enough to be this. I'm not good enough to be that. So we're going to start there. So we're going to find that negative thought. And we're going to take a look at it. We're going to examine it. We're going to observe it. And we're going to say, whoa, look at what I've been telling myself. And we're going to make a conscious decision. We're going to say, you know what? I think it's time I let this go. We're going to make a decision like a thorn bush. We're going to grab that thorn bush and pull it up by its roots and throw that into the wind. We're just going to watch it go into the... no. It's just going to disappear. We're going to make a conscious decision, though. However you can visualize that. I envision what I just saw right there when I pull up a negative thought. I was envisioning it like going into the Wizard of Oz tornado, and it was just gone. Okay? We're gonna see it go away. And now, the next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna put something in its place. Because in that void, if we don't put something there, it's gonna come back home. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna replace that negative thought with a positive affirmation. And if you don't know, a positive affirmation is a positive thought about ourselves. We've been affirming negative things our whole lives. It's natural. How many times have you heard someone say, they make a little mistake, oh, I'm so stupid, right? Oh, I'm such a dummy. I'm an idiot, right? We've been affirming some things that aren't true. And we've been affirming and we've been making them firm in our lives. And these lies that we've been telling ourselves have become laws out here in our lives. So we're gonna replace that negative thought that we had. We're gonna make a decision and we're gonna plant something brand new. We're gonna plant something there and it's gonna bloom and blossom just like a beautiful flower or a rose. Okay? And with that, it's gonna be a positive affirmation. And with positive affirmations, we can reprogram our mind from negative, limited, fearful thoughts to powerful, positive, and possibility thinking. Wouldn't you want that for your life? Wouldn't you want to have more positive, powerful things show up? Everyone does. Well, honestly, I found out that not everyone does. Some people are getting something out of that misery. So sometimes it takes making a decision that I'm done with that. I'm done with living in the darkness and I want some light in my life. And I'm going to get into that a little bit in just a bit. But let's stick to that point. We're going to bring in a positive, powerful affirmation. And we're going to replace our thinking, right? We're going to redirect our thinking from negative thoughts to positive, powerful thoughts. How do we do that? Well, our mind could be like a glass of water. Now imagine, if you have a glass of water, clear glass of water, with dirty water in it, right? That could be the way our mind has been. And we could take our mind, that dirty glass of water, and set it under a dripping water faucet. And we leave that dirty glass of water under that dripping water faucet overnight. Come back the next morning, and that water is all clear now. It's been replaced. That dirty water has been replaced with clear, fresh, clean water, one drop at a time. And that's what we do with positive affirmations. So, positive affirmations, let me tell you how powerful they are. Okay? It's scientifically proven that they work. There's a French psychologist. He was a contemporary of Dr. Sigmund Freud, Emile Coué. Emile Coué treated patients who were suffering from psychosomatic illnesses. Illnesses that their minds created. Remember I told you that our minds are so powerful that they can kill us? Well, guess what? They make us sick first. That's a first stop on the way out, right? So we get sick. Our own mind makes us sick. Emile Coué was treating these patients who were suffering from psychosomatic illnesses. Illnesses their minds created. They showed symptoms of an illness, but they had no disease. So what Dr. Coué did, he prescribed them a positive affirmation. And the positive affirmation he prescribed to them was this: every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. Every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. They read this affirmation. They were prescribed to read it when they woke up, throughout their day, and before they went to bed. What Dr. Coué was, he knew what he was doing. He was using a principle called the principle of light. And if you bring even a small candle into a darkened room, that candle will illuminate the entire room. And the darkness goes back to the nothingness where it came from. Saint Francis of Assisi stated that even a single sunbeam is enough to drive away any shadows. So that's what Emile did, Emile Coué. When he treated his patients with a positive affirmation, he was pouring in light. And that darkness had to flee. So, what happened to these people? They got better. Their symptoms cleared up. And not only did their symptoms clear up, but other areas of their life started to improve. And you know something? Scientific and medical experts around the world were blown away at the simplicity and the power of these things called positive affirmations. So, in my handouts or on my website, you're also going to receive specific information on how to create a positive, powerful affirmation for your own life. Now, you will have the power to overcome any negative thought that you want to overcome, if you so choose. Now, I got to tell you something. Using positive, powerful affirmations is wonderful. But in the book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill states that positive affirmations are very, very powerful. But when they're emotionalized, that means given emotion, they have even more power over the subconscious mind. So here's what it is. Here's what I'm doing. In my workshop, I'm going to help co-create one-on-one. I've been trained to do this. I've been trained to co-create inspiration with the participants. And we're going to bring that inspiration and we're going to turn it into a positive, powerful affirmation. And now we're going to have emotionalized affirmations. But for the meantime, don't worry. You're still going to have the power to create them on your own on the website. But if anyone wants to contact me and help, I'll help you. We'll co-create together. We'll work on creating that inspiration for you. Because inspiration is from the word in spirit. There is no, I don't know of any other powerful, of any more powerful emotion than inspiration. It's very, very powerful. It's much more powerful than happiness. Happiness is mind charged. It's mental. And happiness carries an emotional charge, and it always draws that opposite, which is unhappiness. Inspiration is heart-centered. There is no opposite. So, just a little heads up about my Inspired Life workshop. But for now, just work with the basic positive, powerful affirmations, and the specific instructions will be on my website at www.escapingmyshadow.com. And in my talks, we have a handout, and you get both instructions on how to bring shadow from out back here where we can see it, put a spotlight on it. Then we're going to create a positive, powerful affirmation to overcome any negative thought that you have and would like to defeat. Okay? There are no victims of negative thinking, especially when you are empowered. Now you have the power, you have the tools to overcome any negative thought. So I want to share with you something from Marianne Williamson, and it's called Our Deepest Fear. Nelson Mandela read this poem in his presidential inauguration. So it's one of my favorites, and it's called Our Deepest Fear. Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of power. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so other people won't feel insecure around you. We were all meant to shine like children do. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fears, our presence automatically liberates others. You know something? When I was 19 years old, I'm going to tell you a story real quick. When I was 19, I was working, I had only been listening to my shadow for a short period of time. But the result of that, listening to that negative self-talking mind of mine, the result of that was I was already a criminal, part-time criminal. Drugs and alcohol were my life. And I was a dropout from school. So I was hanging around some people. We were doing some white-collar crimes, stealing money that was supposed to be going to schools. And I felt like, what we call, I was getting hot. Maybe I was going to get caught. The police were going to capture me or whatever. So what I did was I decided to break away from the crime for a little while and take a break and get a job. And sometimes I was even doing it part-time while working. But anyway, here I am. I get a job. Remember I was talking about limitation? Right? The shadow, how it limits us. My mind told me the only job I could get was to go wash cars at a car dealership. So, because my mind makes such a good case, I believed it. It showed me a lot of reasons why that was all that I could do. And I believed it. So I went and got a job at this car dealership, washing cars. And it was there that this guy named Peter made a difference for me in my life. Peter came to me one day and he says, Walter, you should sell cars. And instantly, boom, my shadow interrupted the conversation. And our shadows work lightning fast. My shadow showed me all the reasons why I couldn't do that job. And every reason made so much sense that I listened to my shadow. And I turned to Peter and I said, Peter, I can't do that. Peter didn't fall for it. Peter told me, Walter, yes, you can. You have the personality to do it. You can do it. And I got to tell you something. Even though my shadow was much more noisier and made much a better case why I couldn't do it, what Peter did, Peter shared a little bit of his light with me. He took a little bit of light out of his heart and put it inside of me. Because something said, even though my shadow says you can't do it, something here told me, a little whisper, and it said, maybe someday. So, flash forward to in my life. Here I am, I'm 25 years old. And now, I've been listening to my shadow for quite some time. And the results of that, remember what I said, we have these negative thoughts and we hold that thought in our consciousness and our lives manifest to match up with it. So I had been holding on these thoughts that I'm a bad person, that I'm a piece of crap, and that I'm 25 years old. And here I am. I find myself on the streets of LA. I'm homeless, I'm a fugitive, and I'm addicted to drugs. My nose is broken, my hand is busted up, and I'm a mess. And I remember this day, I'll never forget it. It's in my book, by the way, this story, because it was so profound. What happened to me was, it was Easter. And Easter, I went to the homeless shelter and got some food. And it was raining that day. So me and my road dog, we went and slept under this warehouse. And you know what? The next day, I remember, I crawl out from under that warehouse. And here I am. I'm 25 years old. My teeth are all busted up. My nose is broken. I'm dirty. I haven't taken a shower for at least a couple of weeks. I'm dirty. I'm miserable. I'm hungry. And you know what? Most of all, I'm tired. I'm tired of living like this. And I remember I crawled out from that warehouse and I walked to the sidewalk of Arroyo Parkway in Pasadena. And I walk out to this sidewalk and I look up, and there it is, this mountain. It was just the most beautiful sight. It was a snow-capped mountain because of the rain. It had made snow on the top of this mountain. And I stood there and I saw this beauty, and something happened to me. Something touched me inside. I was inspired. And I saw that mountain, and right where I stood, I made a decision. I said, today I'm changing my life. And right there, I made a decision to give up crime. I made a decision to stop fighting and being violent, being a jerk. I made a decision to quit drugs and alcohol. Right there. And do you know, when we're inspired, we can make a decision to make a full turnaround in our lives. And that's what happened to me. Right there where I stood, that decision happened to me. And I made that, I saw that, I became inspired, and I made that decision. So I went to rehabilitation, Los Angeles Rehab Center. And I came out 90 days later. And you know what? I went for my dreams, selling cars. You know, I got to tell you, people are asking me, hold on, did you succeed? Well, I worked, I saved some money, and I got me a suit, a tie, and I went in there and I got the job. And I gave that job everything I had. And still, I wasn't producing the results that I wanted. So my manager pulled me aside one day. And my manager pulls me aside. He says, hey, Walter, I need to talk to you. And he just says, you know what? It's time. We're letting you go. You're not a salesman. Find something else to do. And you wouldn't believe what those words did to me. I remember that day. It was in February 1995. I walked out of that dealership, and it was starting to rain. In California, it doesn't rain too hard. It's kind of like sprinkling. And I went and waited for the bus so I can go back to the room that I was renting. Didn't have a car, didn't have my own place, and my dreams were shattered. And I remember getting on the bus and looking outside and looking at the sky. It was so dark, and that sky matched how I felt inside. And I made a decision because my mind kept replaying what my boss told me. You're not a salesman. What do you think you were doing? So, limitation, fear, smallness. I made a decision right there on the bus to shrink back to that smallness who I knew myself to be. My mind was convincing me that I had tried to do something greater than something that I was. But that was a lie. I didn't see it as a lie because wasn't able to take a step back. I was my thoughts. My thoughts were still dark and dense. I was unconscious. Remember what Dr. Jung stated? The less conscious we are of these thoughts, the darker and denser they are. So I'm in that darkness. I can't see any light. So I decided to shrink back to my own smallness. And I go back to that room that I was renting, and man, I was depressed. I was sad. And like I said, my dreams were shattered. So I decided to look at the newspaper and just find a job that I could just get. So I got a job telemarketing. And I didn't enjoy this job very much. Especially when I would be waiting at the bus stop and I would see a brand new car pass by with dealership plates. I knew that someone was living my dream. And I would just see it. I'd see these cars pass by with the fresh registration on them. And the world was passing me by. And I was like, someone is living my dream. See, I wasn't lying to myself. I was just seeing it happen, and every time I saw that, it'd be like a little dagger right into me. You know what I mean? So I went to work, and my manager Trish, I remember Trish. One day Trish gave me a book, and she wanted me to do that job better. She wanted me to produce better results for her. You know, she's a manager. She's responsible for the results of her telemarketers. She gave me this book, and this book was called How to Be a Winner by Zig Ziglar. And, you know, this is the funniest thing when people try to help us. Sometimes we can be resentful. You ever had that happen? Someone want to help you, and you get angry about it? I'm like, what? In my mind, I'm like, what? Do you think I'm a loser? Right? So I took the book home, threw it on the bed. And I was, I don't really need that. I'm good. This is funny. This is the craziest thing about people that really need the help. How we respond to it. Eventually I popped the book open and something amazing happened. I didn't know what was going to happen with that book, or I would have been so grateful when she gave it to me. But I wasn't. But I'm grateful for her now. Because that book allowed me to do something. What I did with that book, I started reading it, and I started to become inspired. These principles of success were outlined in this book. And here's what really started happening. I started to take positive information and putting it into my mind. I started to bring light in, and that darkness started to fade away. And I wasn't even done with that book when I made a decision that I was going to get back into the car business. And I made a decision. I started to see that success in the automobile industry was my choice, not that manager that fired me. And what he said had nothing to do with me. I started to see these things. So I went to another car dealership. Boom, got the job there. And you know what? My mind told me no one would hire me. See, these lies that I'm telling you about. When you start to identify these lies that have become laws, I was like in a jail in my head, and I couldn't break free of it. But that book helped me break free, and I got that job. And in a short period of time, I sold more cars than any of the other 15 salesmen there. And I became what is called a top salesman. Whoa, I sold more than everyone. And then a couple of months later, boom, I did it again. I sold more cars than everyone. And I kept doing it. And I kept putting in more books into my mind. I started seeing positive results in my life. I started reaching for all kinds of positive books. I wanted to keep pouring in that positive information into my mind. And one day, after I kept being the top salesman, I kept doing it maybe 6 months out of the year. And I had some real strong competition there. So one day my boss calls me in. He goes, "Hey, Walter, I need to talk to you." He goes, "It's time. We're going to make you a manager." I'm like, whoa. I was so amazed to see they gave me my own team of salesmen. And my job was to train, motivate, and inspire them to success. And I loved that job. And I loved my team, and we were good. And we were passionate. And I loved doing that job. But you know something? One day, I stopped and I looked at my life, and I realized that I was living that dream that I created when I was homeless. I created in rehab. I was like, I'm going to go sell cars. And I created this dream, and I was living my dream. I was living beyond my dream, because now I'm a manager. I got a 6-figure income job. And man, for me, it wasn't easy. It was like climbing a mountain. You know, it took a lot of hard work, a lot of not giving up. But I made it. I made it to the top of this mountain, because now I'm a manager in the automobile industry. And something happened to me. What happened was, I realized now that I'm on the top of this mountain, I have a new view that I didn't have from the bottom. And from this view, I can see an even bigger mountain that I couldn't see from down there. I can see an even bigger mountain that I wanted to climb. A snow-capped mountain. And that mountain represented the book I wanted to write. And that mountain represented me being a public speaker. But I was afraid. I was afraid to try. That fear that our shadow keeps reminding us of, that limitation, that smallness, all of it came up full face, right in my face. But you know what? My mind said, hey, don't forget where you came from, right? Don't forget where you came from. That was the limitation part, the smallness part, right? That was the smallness part. The limitation was, it's too high. This is what my mind was telling me. You can't do that. And then the fear. What is everyone going to think of you? You're shooting too high. Don't forget where you came from. All that nonsense. You know, that isn't who you are, right? My identity came up. And I had to hear my mind talk to me. And I had to let that go. Remember? Letting go. Just let it go. I said, I'm going to go for it anyway. I put a lot of hard work in. Went to Toastmasters, right? Started doing a lot of work there. They made me the president, and we achieved a lot of goals. I took another course at an transformational educational organization. I started going for it. Then I found a writer to help me write a book. And you know what? I put all that work in, and it was not easy. It was just like climbing that last mountain, and even more harder. I put in a lot of hard work to make it to the top of this mountain. My book is available. I'm right here speaking to you, and now my talk's available. I made it to the top of this mountain to call out to you, to ask you, what mountain has been too high for you to climb? What has your mind told you What sort of limitations has it put in front of you? What sort of smallness has it convinced you of? What sort of fear does it bring into your heart when you want to think of doing something great? So, I'm here to tell you something. I've overcome my identity, my smallness, my fears, my limitations. I've overcome all that for one reason. So I can stand right here and tell you, so can you. If I can overcome all of my limitations and fears and my smallness, absolutely you can do it too. There's absolutely no mountain too high for you to climb. I have one last poem for you, and this poem is called Come to the Edge. Come to the edge, he said. But we're afraid. We might fall, they said. Come to the edge, he said. But it's too high, they said. Come to the edge, he said. And they came. And he pushed them. And they flew. Thank you. So, just a couple things. My book, Escaping My Shadow, I've made that available for anyone who would like to read that book at absolutely no charge on my website. So, as I share my gifts with you, all of the love and abundance that I desire is already mine. That's my affirmation. As I share my gifts with the world, all of the love and abundance that I desire is already mine. So that's my gift to you. And also, my Escaping My Shadow talk, I have available right now. I actually have a slideshow accompanied with this talk. It didn't work out today for me to use that on the television. My camera, either we could see the TV or we could see me, so it was either one or the other. So that didn't work out today, but it's perfect. But I do have a slideshow. I have an artist who created a slideshow for my visuals for you. I have that available. And then I have the Inspired Life Workshop. And that's the workshop where I work one-on-one in a group environment with everyone to create an inspiring affirmation. And people will leave with extreme value. That's a valuable thing when you can put some light, something powerful and positive into your mind. And you can totally shift that way of thinking. Any negativity that that you have that you want to overcome, I'd love to work with you. And I'd love to work with anyone, and even if it's a one-on-one, it doesn't have to be in a big group workshop setting. So I'm available for that. I do awareness coaching, people who are suffering from fear or anxiety. I also work with people in meditation. I teach meditation and awareness coaching. So all that's available. Just wanted to put that out there to you. And so please, if you like the talk, share it with someone, and also my book. So if, chapter 1, if you read chapter 1, at the bottom of that is a like me. All you have to do is like me on either Google or Facebook, and you can access the entire book at no charge. That's my gift to you. All right, so thank you for listening to me. Have yourself a wonderful day, and look forward to inspiring you and yours. Thank you.